Welcome to episode 14 of Project 250, a weekly chronicle of the people, places, and events of the American Revolution, in the order they occurred. So, without further ado, here's what was happening 250 years ago this week, April 2nd to 8th, 1775. Last week, the Second Virginia Convention, on its final day of deliberation, made several important decisions, including the appointment of a committee to develop methods for encouraging industry and manufacturing in Virginia, and selecting Thomas Jefferson as an alternate delegate to the Second Continental Congress. The very next day, Virginia's governor, Lord Dunmore, forbid the appointment of delegates from Virginia to the Second Continental Congress. In Boston, General Thomas Gage, awaiting official authorization for his proposed expedition to Concord, where he aimed to seize weapons and other supplies, sent an armed force of about 1,200 men under Brigadier General Hugh Percy into the countryside to gauge local reaction. The British got as far as the Watertown Bridge, but were confronted by a pair of cannons. Although the cannons were unmanned, the British turned around and returned to Boston, having accomplished little, other than some minor property damage. In response to this incursion, the Massachusetts Provincial Congress ordered all militia and minute companies to regard any British army that marched out of Boston, with artillery and baggage, as an attempt to enforce the late Acts of Parliament. Consequently, an army of observation should immediately be formed which would act solely on the defensive. Finally, last week, King George III officially endorsed the New England Restraining Act. Turning our attention to the events of this week, on April 3rd, New York's Colonial Assembly, after refusing to select delegates to the upcoming Second Continental Congress, officially adjourned and disbanded. On the same day, George Washington wrote to Virginia's royal governor, Lord Dunmore, requesting permission to resurvey a large parcel of land in western Virginia. This land encompassed about 200,000 acres and was located at least 200 miles from the nearest settlement. In his letter, Washington noted that patents for this land, granted as a reward for military service, had been issued with Dunmore's signature and the Colonies' seal since December 1, 1773. Unfortunately, the surveys, authorized under the Proclamation of 1754, had now been declared null and void, presumably by Lord Dunmore himself. In his appeal, Washington argued that under the present circumstances, it would be exceptionally unfair to declare the surveys invalid at this late stage. Washington assured Dunmore that he would never have troubled the governor with this matter during such a tumultuous time were it not for the insistence of others and the fact that he would be leaving home in May to attend the Continental Congress as a delegate from Virginia, even though Dunmore had expressly forbid the appointment of delegates from Virginia just days before. Despite the potential effrontery in making such a request under the current circumstances both in Virginia and throughout the colonies, Washington felt confident that Dunmore possessed enough kindness to not take offense when facts are presented. While Lord Dunmore mulled over Washington's request, on April 5th, the Massachusetts Provincial Congress, following several days of negotiation, formally issued a set of rules and regulations governing the operations of the Massachusetts Provincial Army. On the same day, during his return voyage from Britain, Benjamin Franklin, perhaps seeking to escape the tedium of 18th-century sea travel, began investigating a question that had intrigued him for years: why westbound ships took longer in crossing the Atlantic Ocean than did eastbound ships. Franklin's theory, which he had first advanced 3 decades earlier, involved the influence of the Earth's rotation. 2 days later, on Friday, April 7th, Dr. Joseph Warren, concerned about the recent activities of British troops in Boston, and anticipating an imminent attack somewhere, sent Paul Revere to Concord, where the Massachusetts Provincial Congress was currently in session, and various stockpiles of munitions and military supplies were located, with a warning of possible British troop movement in their direction. As one resident noted, Revere's message heightened the state of alert in Concord. Later that day, the Provisional Congress prepared a circular letter urging the towns of eastern Massachusetts to take measures to ensure that their militias were ready in case of an emergency. The Congress also advised these towns to take no action except defensively. On that same day, April 7th, according to biographer James Boswell, noted English thinker and man of letters Dr. Samuel Johnson made his famous statement that patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel. The meaning of Johnson's statement has been interpreted in various ways, but Boswell suggested that Johnson was not condemning patriotism in general, merely criticizing what he considered the false patriotism of politicians such as William Pitt and his supporters. The following day, April 8th, the Massachusetts Provincial Congress, alarmed by Revere's warning of British plans to seize their powder and weapons, with the assistance of local citizens, began to remove weapons and other military supplies from Concord and relocate them in neighboring towns. At week's end, the Congress passed a resolution to send delegates to Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire to solicit their participation in raising a provincial army. And that's the way it was 250 years ago this week. If you enjoyed this video, please tell a friend. And if you like what you see on this channel, make sure to like, share and subscribe. You can also check us out on Facebook and Twitter, or X. Thank you for watching.